Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Georgia Tech Manufacturing Institute's Lunch and Learn lecture series. My name is Dr. Billy D. Brown and I'm a senior research faculty as well as the Education Workforce Development Director at GTMI. I'm excited to continue hosting this informative series along with my partner, Paige Shee, who's a Strategic Partners Director. I encourage you to please spread the word so we can continue to grow our audience and our network, which provides value for our community and our stakeholders. Before I introduce today's speaker, I just want to give a brief introduction of GTMI and provide some instructions for the audience. So GTMI is one of 11 interdisciplinary research institutes that uniquely focuses on manufacturing research, development, and deployment. We help tackle the grand challenges of today's manufacturers and assist partners in moving innovations from the lab to the market. GTMI has a wide variety of facilities and equipment located on main campus for basic research, as well as nearby on 14th Street for more applied research in our advanced manufacturing pilot facility. GTMI's mission includes education and workforce training, collaborative partnerships with industry, academia, and government, as well as thought leadership. GTMI hosts a Lunch and Learn series each semester. This spring, sessions will be held every Monday at noon as live online events. These sessions are excellent opportunities for Georgia Tech faculty, undergraduate and graduate student researchers, as well as a global manufacturing community to learn and share advanced manufacturing knowledge. To ensure a smooth presentation experience, all audience members are currently muted. If you have questions or comments for the speaker, please use the chat window or the Q&A panel on your screen, and I strongly encourage you to please submit your questions in the chat so that they can be answered promptly at the end of the presentation. In addition, we will have another survey link that will be posted on the chat, and please give us your feedback so we can improve our series. Okay, today I'm pleased to introduce Connor Spiegelman and Allison Burrell, who will discuss exploring 3D printing and production digital light synthesis technology. Connor Spiegelman leads the Carbon University program, which prioritizes advancing 3D printing and carbon technology in academia. Connor's aim is to engage directly with faculty and students to find success in student-led projects, academic programs, and nationwide initiatives with carbon's digital light synthesis technology. Allison Burrell is passionate about the possibilities of additive manufacturing. As a senior applications engineer at Carbon, Allison helps customers bridge the gap from ideas to physical parts created with Carbon's DLS technology. In today's session, Connor and Allison will explain where to find and how to find value in 3D printing when looking at production applications. This will include providing context to the various existing technologies in the marketplace, major projects underway using DLS, and how to create and develop your own 3D printing projects for production. Connor and Allison, you may now begin your presentation.
Thank you, Billy D, and hi everybody. Nice to meet you all. Again, my name is Connor Spiegelman, and I work with Carbon as the university program lead. And today we'll be talking to you about 3D printing in production. What you're looking at is a fleet of our largest printers, L1 printers, that are actually being used by a contract manufacturer, not Carbon, to produce projects such as the Adidas project. You can see that little shoe in the back, along with a number of other different projects as well. And so today, really, 3D printing has been traditionally confined to prototyping technologies, but as of late, it's starting to be used in production. And so what we'd like to focus on is, how to identify and look at 3D printing for production, and tell you a little bit more about Carbon and our current approach to the market. So again, my name's Connor, and this is Allison, and we're going to be or my job at Carbon particularly is to focus on research enablement, workforce development, and really how to increase exposure and adoption of our technology, which we really do think is a fundamental advancement in 3D printing to go from that prototyping to production technology. Allison, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, and so thank you, Billy D, for the introductions. Like Billy D said, I am a senior applications engineer at Carbon, and I focus on helping customers apply our technology to their products.
So what are we going to be talking about today? To start off with the Carbon platform, learning more about our currently available products and so you can sort of develop a framework for who we are and what we do. We'll dive deeper into the technology itself and show you key points of differentiation between us and different technologies. We'll have a break time for questions. So if you do submit questions to the chat now, we can use this time to review them and ask them. And then Allison will be diving into developing markets for 3D printed products. And then we'll wrap up with some keys to success for future growth. So what is the Carbon platform? I think the easiest way to start this off is by saying that Carbon itself does not produce end-use parts. We are not a manufacturer. Instead, we are really a technology provider. So we provide the hardware or the printers, the software, which can either be through the form of a print planner, which will help us optimize various resins for accuracy, speed, and whatnot. And then on top of that, new and innovative design tools that we're enabling through some of our recent advancements in latticing and metamaterials development. And then on the materials side, we have a patented dual cure materials platform, which is allowing us to produce materials that are being used in end-use functional cases that have never really been possible before in the polymeric space. And so today we're going to be reviewing all of that, but I think the easiest way to start it off is just by showing you a catchy video that we did that reviews the company and one of our major partnerships.
Welcome to Carbon. We're a technology company changing the way the world makes things, specifically 3D printed things. We didn't start out trying to change manufacturing forever.
We didn't?
No, we didn't. We started with the simple goal of making 3D printed parts better.
It's 25 to 100 times faster, which is game-changing.
But we quickly realized that with our combination of technology and materials, we could make real parts with mechanical properties and surface finishes that make injection molded plastics obsolete by comparison. Embracing the idea that speed to production isn't an obstacle anymore. It's the only way forward. Our partners share our enthusiasm for reinventing the rules. Partners who are manufacturing at scale, making millions of real products.
Like us?
Yeah, like you. In partnership with Adidas, we've created a midsole that shouldn't exist so that they could make a shoe that shouldn't exist. Light, super flexible, highly durable, and printed straight from the liquid. A marvel of design and function, this shoe defies logic. Whether you want to make 1 or 1 million, this is true, customizable, and on-demand mass manufacturing. Not a publicity stunt. This is a revolution. And we're just getting started. Stop prototyping. Start producing.
I have to say I've seen that video about 100 times and it gets better every time. So we can share that with you guys following the presentation. What we'd like to show here, though, is some recent advancements we've made in the printer side of the platform. So just going generation by generation here, the M1 was our first printer that we introduced to the market. It has a really constrained build volume, as you can see from the bottom here. And this was really our first test to see, could we create a 3D printed, could we create a refined 3D printer, and what sort of markets did that attract? Simultaneously, while we were developing the M1, we were actually developing the L1 as well, where we had a project agreement in place with Adidas, and then refined that printer, and then release it to the general market in 2020 after several years of functioning mainly in higher volume production projects for major partners. In 2017, we released the M2, which doubled the build volume of the M1, and then as of only a month or two ago, unveiled the M3 and the M3 Max. The M3 and the M3 Max deploy what we consider to be next generation DLS technology. They're really a refined hardware architecture that's capable of producing parts much more quickly with a better surface finish and more accurately as well. And so these printers themselves are a market improvement and now can really cover the full spectrum of available build sizes. And so what's really important to remember about Carbon's process when thinking about production is that this build platform is actually inverted, similar to a DLP process where the build platform drops into the liquid pool of resin. And we use a UV curing light source so that we can really cover the entire build platform with a single flash of light. That means that instead of an extruder continuously building layer by layer, we, through a succession of flashes, can cure the entire platform and produce the entire build platform in roughly the same amount of time as it would take to produce a single component, as long as the z-axis or the height is consistent. So that's the first aspect, which is really the hardware. So right now, for the first time, we do think that we have a really good portfolio of printers that can cover the spectrum of available build platforms and can achieve high tolerance, high precision parts, or high throughput parts, and everything in between. And so on the software side, which is really the brains of everything that we're doing, we collect a lot of data points from our customers, big data that we use to actually inform and improve our software over time. Roughly every 6 to 10 weeks, we push forward a software update, which will actually add optimizations to our existing printer in the form of more refined print planning algorithms, which also can give us the ability not only to improve speed and surface finish, but to actually print new and interesting geometries, which we've learned how to script through controlling certain aspects of our technology. There's also this aspect of the digital thread where our customers are seeing unprecedented rapid time to market, where because they're being able to avoid transitioning technologies, let's say from concept CAD to 3D printing to molding to then production molding, they're able to consistently do it on a single platform, and this sort of iteration process and consistent testing has allowed them to act so rapidly. And then we're learning and continuing to build in intelligence and continue this cycle and drive a real-time optimizations and service-related abilities to our platform, where a customer, if there's a software issue or something that can be fixed via software, are able to pretty seamlessly get it fixed by our team here in Redwood City. And then that really leads to the bigger sort of concept here, which is what is a manufacturing cloud, right? And so a lot of companies are positioning themselves to have their own manufacturing cloud in the future, and we think that we have something similar on our end, and we think that we do truly enable a really multi-technology and agnostic manufacturing platform where you can run a fleet of carbon printers and you can get real-time data and analytics back, and you can start to think about how to run a really complicated, sophisticated workflow for high mix, lower volume sorts of applications as well. And we're starting to allow the APIs and the MES integrations to have that fully refined and well thought out digital manufacturing practice. But that leads to the next part about software, which is, it's not really all about the data collection in the manufacturing cloud, but how can you leverage that data to influence design? And so what we're going to talk about today, and Allison most pointedly, is how you can take inputs such as pressure mapping here, and then generate a design such as a lattice structure, simulate it, and then get it ready for manufacturing. And so we do this particularly with elastomeric materials at this point, where we can take pressure mapping data, define a stress strain curve that's ideal for a given zone. So if you think about this shoe here, you can tell that there's probably multiple different types of lattices you'd like to have given the stiffness that's required and whatnot, versus the comfort that's required. And then generate a lattice based on this sort of inputs, simulate it based on environmental testing that's been done, and then quickly trim and produce it. So we're doing this in a number of different application fields. I think of boxing gloves, shoes, and helmets and whatnot. And we're continuing to refine and look for new applications for this sort of technology with new inputs and new simulation tools. When you look at our materials, which is the third aspect of the business, this is probably what we're most known for in the 3D printing industry. We have real elastomers or real rubbers that are consistent of elastomeric polyurethanes, or our EPU series, which have both dampening and energy return properties, and then a really interesting silicone material, which prints rigid, and so you're able to print with a fine feature resolution, and then it gels into this Shore A35 state. So highly useful in a lot of complex soft applications. And on the rigid side of things, we've had both semi-rigid polypropylene-like materials and then more rigid ABS and performance plastic rigid materials as well. So FPU50 and RPU130 have each over 100% elongation at break with great impact-resistant properties, and RPU130 itself has an extremely high heat deflection temperature, to where in combination those sorts of components can be used in automotive interiors, which is a real first for the industry. EPX82 as well passes automotive standards. It's comparable to a glass-filled nylon and can be used throughout the vehicle. We've seen Ford, Lamborghini, and many other companies using it for various production applications in the interior, the structural, electrical, and whatnot. CE is a really interesting material as well. NASA recently, as of 2020, sent it off into space to perform maintenance on the Cassini Space Telescope. This component was a thruster component that was one of the first, or the only polymeric 3D printed part to pass the chemical compatibility and outgassing requirements with the thermal volatility of being exposed to space as well. So it's a highly interesting material, best used in static applications. And then on the medical side, because we have this polyurethane capability, we're really able to dive deeper into more biocompatible-like applications. Our materials can be used to create FDA Class 6 medical devices, which can be used in the body for up to 24 hours. This would be our MPU 100 material. And there's a lot more things that we're doing on the research side of things that advance into more and more sophisticated in-body sorts of applications. We can't talk too much about it today, but the 30-year roadmap for carbon on the medical side of things is very, very exciting. And so, in general, I hope that gives you guys a good overview of kind of what our products are and what it is that we do. But, let's dive into the more fundamental aspects of the printing technology. And so there's really two key innovations when you think about carbon. So the first is in the printing process itself. So think about our process as a new form of an SLA or DLP in some senses, but the end properties of the manufactured part and the key points of differentiation within the technology itself really differentiate us from these technologies. So we have, similar though, a light projecting through onto a liquid. That liquid, upon interacting with that light, causes a photopolymeric reaction. The build platform is dropped in, and then that part adheses, and you build that platform in a gradual process in an inverted bottom to up sort of way. Now that's not different. What is different though is this oxygen permeable window here, which is a proprietary patented part of Carbon's technology, which allows for oxygen to pass through this window and generate a 50 micron layer of fluid channel layer, which we call the dead zone. The dead zone inhibits polymerization along this window so that you don't have to use a sort of scraping formula, or you don't have to cure through polymerized plastic. Instead, you get this gradual flowing of plastic through the center and pulling up in a fashion that's much more quick than traditional 3D printing. In fact, it's so quick that internally the layer lines that are typically formed in a 3D printing process aren't allowed to form in carbons. So your parts are fully dense and isotropic. And on top of that, lastly, because you're printing so quickly and because you're using liquid resins as your initial, formulaic material, you're able to use new and exciting material chemistries like polyurethanes and epoxies that have these industrial grade mechanics and biocompatibility properties. Or otherwise, in these other more traditional liquid resin processes, the amount of time that it would have caused pot life expiration or oxidation of the resin to have occurred, making it incapable of being printed. And at the bottom here, I hope that this plays one more time. You were seeing the cross sections of the part being displayed in that sort of projecting, filming video-like fashion. This is a zoomed in version of the dead zone. And so what you're seeing here is photocontrasting agents, gold particles put into the material in a cylinder is being printed at 200 millimeters per hour, and you're just seeing this consistent flow of the resin through and the part being continuously pulled up. What's important to think about here, though, is that right here, this is liquid resin, right? Right past this point is where polymerization occurs. And as in a succession of flashes up to the top, that liquid becomes, or that semi-solid becomes slightly more solid throughout. And so in a sense, it's not particles being deposited and placed on top of each other. This part's essentially being grown without the ability to really create failure points within the part. That leads us to key innovation number 2, which is these dual cure materials. So once that part is set with light in that photopolymeric reaction, that part is essentially stable enough to be transported, but we don't really want any more sort of stability within that. In fact, we want that photopolymeric network to dissolve and a secondary thermosetting network to form that really gives us those end-use mechanical properties. And so in layman's terms, essentially, you're taking the part off the printer, you're de-adhesing it to the platform, washing it of the excess resin, and then placing it into the oven, where then after a bake cycle, which could range from 4 to 14 hours, emerges the full part with its end-use properties. CE is the most robust example, and I personally believe why we call it the green state of the materials, where this part goes from 250 to 280 megapascals of modulus and then transforms to 3,800 to 4,000 megapascals. So a real change in modulus at that point. So then when you zoom out and you look at 3D printing overall, you say, you know, what is carbon in the scheme of things? And so the way we've looked at it for years now is traditional 3D printing really has two different forms of curing methods. You have heat-based curing methods like your FDM and SLS, where you get additional functionality, but at the same time you compromise on surface finish and feature resolution in comparison to on the right-hand side, light-based technologies that have that resolution and surface finish, but are typically confined and limited thermally and through UV stability as well. Thermally, UV stability, and some mechanical properties as well. And so when you look at DLS and our two-step process, right, we really initially set the shape so we get that fine surface finish and feature resolution via light. And then we have a secondary reactive chemistry, which is capable of giving those sorts of properties at the end. You combine that with the way in which we print that results in fully dense parts and new materials capabilities. You start to see why this technology is more fundamentally differentiated and capable of production in a number of different ways. And to wrap up my section of things, you know, we do everything with the exception of universities through a subscription model. And so what this means is that we don't really have those traditional sorts of licensing that you need in 3D printing to enable new different forms of the technology. Really, we try to make it one line item and accessible to all of our customers for their success, because ultimately at the end of the day, we want you to renew your subscription at the end of the year. And on top of that, we're providing a really next level form of support. We have a customer success team, which helps manage day-to-day engineering and technical issues. And then we have experts like Allison on the applications engineering team that can really focus with you and take a concept to production with an internal expert at Carbon. And then to wrap it all up, we really are looking at a fully integrated ecosystem in the long term that can give you all of the adjacent technologies that are required throughout our printing process and allow for you to get a low-cost, fully customized hardware, software, and materials platform for full manufacturing integration. We're not there yet, but this is the long-term intention to drive down costs and to add customer satisfaction as a main cornerstone of what we're trying to do here at Carbon. So I don't know if there's any questions in the chat, but we'd love to hear some questions if possible. Billy D, is there any questions in the chat?
Sorry, Connor. No, I don't see any questions in the chat so far. And I didn't know you were going to break for questions. So then I guess before Allison comes aboard. But maybe we should give the audience a little bit more time to formulate questions while Allison is talking, and then we'll just answer questions at the end.
Sounds perfect.
Does that work? Okay.
Yeah, it works great. All right, Allison.
Great, thank you. So I hope from the first part of the presentation that you all have a thorough foundation and understanding of Carbon's digital light synthesis technology and our production platform. And in the intro video at the beginning of the presentation, you saw a case study with Adidas and how the team designed a 3D printed midsole and brought the shoe to market. And we have many other examples where customers have found success in designing breakthrough products and bringing them to market with Carbon. So I'm going to focus the second half of the presentation highlighting additional case studies, along with using those case studies to communicate what we look for and some of the trends we see in developing markets for 3D printed products. With that, I have another video to share.
Introducing the next evolution in hockey helmets, the Supertax X with NestTech from CCM and Carbon. The Supertax X with NestTech is the world's first 3D printed hockey helmet interior, replacing traditional foam padding with the Nest lattice for increased breathability, premium comfort, and elite protection. It starts with Carbon's advanced design engine software automatically generating a highly optimized lattice structure based on desired performance criteria and weight. This lattice structure enables fine control over energy absorption and dissipation by aligning internal damping struts against the directions of impact that hockey players experience during play. The NestTech lattice is made up of over 130,000 struts. Each strut is specially tuned at every point on the helmet, allowing the lattice to absorb and disperse energy from impacts. The open architecture of the Nest lattice also offers unprecedented comfort by allowing air to flow throughout the helmet, keeping the player cool from buzzer to buzzer. A computer-generated texture ensures enhanced comfort and a precision fit where the helmet meets the player's head. Carbon digital light synthesis uses liquid polymer resins, ultraviolet light, and oxygen to create high-performance designs that are impossible to achieve with traditional manufacturing. Introducing the Supertax X with NestTech. Inspired by hockey, built with light and oxygen, designed for your game.
So what you can see from the video is that for this particular product and for many other products that are being produced with the Carbon platform, there is significant value added with the design. A lot of times the lattice structure combined with Carbon's excellent materials allows our customers to have more design freedom in thinking about new ways to improve product performance. In the video, we highlighted that critical protection. So you saw the impact testing that was done on the helmet, and through that understanding of performance requirements, the structure that was designed can be tuned to meet those requirements and improve performance over existing materials, such as foam. The second consideration of how Carbon was able to bring value through the design of the part was with that perfect fit. The lattice is a much more open structure than traditional foam, which allows for comfort with breathability through the structure itself. In addition, we can apply texture digitally with our software and improve the overall comfort of the product. And lastly, the performance of the part was driven by data. So using our lattice simulation tools, like Connor talked about on the previous slide, we're able to automatically generate and iterate through different structures and choose the design that will be the highest performance. And the next case study that I wanted to share highlights another advantage that Carbon provides, which is rapid time to market. One key area of success that we've seen Carbon can bring is accelerated timelines. So with this example from a bike saddle project, our customer was able to see a 50% faster time to market, and they were able to iterate through 70 design iterations. So like I mentioned previously, the Carbon platform is opening up design freedom, allowing designers to think about performance and how to exceed the performance of existing materials and do that in a way that is faster than they've been able to do it before. So you can see the timeline on the slide going from beginning initial exploration through the start of volume production in just 13 months. And that's a huge win. So we see this across industries as a reason for customers to leverage Carbon. So the third point that I want to mention related to developing markets for 3D printed products is the low volume production space. Traditional manufacturing methods often are not a good solution for low volume production. So when you think of injection molding and you think of the tooling costs and lead times, being able to produce rigid polymeric components at lower volumes is often a challenge. So what we're seeing as an opportunity is meeting the needs of these customers that have low volume production and actually achieving cost savings by switching production over to Carbon. So often there's an opportunity to think about part consolidation or a simplification of the production steps with the new design freedom that Carbon offers. For example, on this slide, there's an image of a part from Wilson Tool, where they were able to change over their manufacturing method to carbon and eliminate welding and other steps in their manufacturing process that actually makes the part safer and simpler. And we see customers that are able to iterate through designs and open up the flexibility of the design of their part because they're not limited to traditional manufacturing methods. And this often leads to reduced lead times, like we mentioned before, but also reduced costs, especially for low volume. So something that might not have been considered for production before now becomes a viable product with production on the Carbon platform. And lastly, we can't talk about markets for 3D printed products without discussing individual customization. We enable customers who want to have a mass customized product, such as the thermoforming industry for clear aligners. So I'm not sure if most of you have heard of clear aligners, but they've become increasingly more popular as an alternative to traditional braces. But have you thought about the manufacturing challenge of producing those aligners? A typical treatment for one patient can include dozens of sets of aligners, and each set of aligners is unique not only to the patient, but also over the course of the treatment. So Carbon is finding great success in meeting the needs of this industry. Currently, we are not printing the aligners themselves, but we're printing the form or the mold for the aligners using a rigid material. So like we mentioned before, the L1 printer is a reliable production machine that allows for high throughput. And we have software solutions for thermoforming customers to automate part packing, as you can see in the image on this slide, and that allows for optimized production planning. And then even within the workflow, we collaborate with customers to innovate in areas such as solvent-free post-processing to really help them realize additional cost downs. And finally, it is more than a printer. Carbon is a platform for growth. And we partner with our customers to help them achieve that growth because our customers' success is our success. So now I'll wrap it up by highlighting a few keys to success that we've found at Carbon. So we focus heavily on innovation. You saw a slide previously that covers our material offerings, and we are continually exploring and adding new materials to our lineup. We just launched EPX86FR, which is a flame retardant material with a V0 rating. For hardware, like Connor mentioned, we just launched the M3 and M3 Max, which with the M3 Max in particular, which has a 4K light engine, we are really stepping up what's possible with the technology. And then from the software side, we also recently launched our design engine software on a subscription basis with or without a printer, which will allow more designers to create high quality latticed parts. Next, we also find success when we focus on streamlining the workflow. I shared the example from thermoforming with the solvent-free cleaning, but another example is our Smart Part Washer, which is another hardware offering from Carbon, which makes it easy for customers to take parts off the printer and maintain that digital thread through the wash and just making that workflow easier. And then lastly, we are always focused on making the customer experience more enjoyable. What you see in the image on the right-hand side of the slide is the new location of the touchscreen on the M3 printers, which is just one example of new features that we've incorporated to make the product more enjoyable and just easier to use. And so the last slide that we have is we wanted to let you know that we are hiring. Check out our job openings. We have full-time positions and summer internships. Everything is posted on our website, so go check it out. And then with that, we will open it up for questions.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Connor and Allison, for this great presentation. And I love that you actually listed some of the open positions you had at the end. If you don't mind, if you don't mind leaving that up for
No, you got it. You
a few
got
more
it.
minutes, that might be that might be a good idea, because I'm sure the students here are probably interested in summer internships and full-time positions. So while that's up, I guess please, anyone who has questions, please go ahead and submit those questions. I do see one question here. How UV stable? How UV stable are the cured materials, for example, for outdoor applications?
Yeah, so the UV stability is definitely much more in the range of traditionally injection molded materials than what you typically see with a SLA-like material itself. So not saying that UV stable, so RRP-130 material is our most UV stable material, and that can be used in outdoor applications, but that's not to say that every material can be used for every outdoor application. As you start to evaluate it on an application by application basis, there's various different sorts of tests in addition to UV stability. But I would say that RP-130 is our most UV stable material, and the others are somewhat acceptable for outdoor use in the right application area.
Yeah, and I'll just add a comment to that, what Connor said. So I think with Carbon's material offerings, we have what we call, single part and two-part resins. So those two-part resins are those dual cure materials that we talked about with that thermal network that improves the UV stability. So I think in particular, our dual cure materials you're going to see more UV stability compared to a single part resin that is only, they're just more susceptible to that UV aging. And so I wanted to add a note that our Carbon website has pretty extensive technical data sheets for all of our materials. And we do include some data from UV stability testing. And so if you are interested in a particular resin, you can check out the TDS on our website and then see if there's that additional UV stability data included. But if you have a particular application in mind, we always love to talk to people and really understand the requirements of the product. Think through that with you of like what would be the best material for your application.
Exactly.
Yeah, speaking of materials, are all the materials you guys use, are they polymeric, or do you have any like metal materials or composite like materials? Or like, just curious if you're in that market at all.
Yeah, so Carbon as a platform, we only have polymeric materials.
Okay.
Thing with metal. Yeah, is there anything you wanted to add to that, Connor?
No, only polymeric materials. We're currently very content with that and looking for, to continue to grow these families of epoxies and polyurethanes, and always interested in looking for new liquid resin polymers that will unlock new application areas.
I know you mentioned a bright future for the medical market. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Unfortunately, I cannot.
Okay.
But just know that if you look at the what it takes to become fully medically relied upon as a materials and a technology provider, it's a decently long road ahead, and our company is well positioned to continue to go down that path and to continue to explore new and interesting applications that are much that continue to be more FDA compliant and whatnot, and do work with lower classes of permitted devices.
Right.
Yeah, one thing to point out, I think Connor may have mentioned it earlier, but our material families are biocompatible. So we've done testing for cytotoxicity, irritation, and sensitization, and all material families pass. We also have data on different compatibility with different sterilization methods. So we definitely, we have several large medical device customers that are finding a lot of success with leveraging carbon in their products and the manufacturing of their devices. So there's definitely a lot of potential in the medical industry with carbon.
Great, great. Speaking of medical, I mean, we have some previous lectures and past semesters and even this semester on biomanufacturing. And in fact, our next lecture is a biomanufacturing topic going to be given by Professor Todd Sulchek on new microfluidic technologies that enable manufacturing of safer, more precise, more cost-effective cell therapies. So that lecture will be given next week at this time by Professor Todd Sulchek in Mechanical Engineering of Georgia Tech. So please tune in for that lecture. We do have another question here, I see. What type of educational backgrounds, degree tracks are you seeking in interns or new employees?
Well, I think that's a really good question. We are a hardware, software, and materials company. And so I wouldn't say that we have an emphasis on any sort of particular experience or field, but we are very interested in geometric modeling, polymer resin development sorts of positions. And then obviously, relevant hardware experience is good as well. We're building the printers, making the materials, and developing the software. So if you have the applicable skills, we'd love to have you apply.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and like we mentioned, the jobs are posted by kind of theme on our website. So like if your background is software, it's pretty easy to just look at the software openings. And so we definitely encourage you to check out. We're hiring kind of across the board, so just materials, software, and hardware.
Fantastic, fantastic. I see another question. Could you talk about some of the automotive applications for carbon 3D printed parts?
I'd be happy to. So yeah, when it comes to carbon in the automotive space, it really starts off with our materials. So EPX82 that I mentioned passed automotive US CAR 2 standards, which allows and permits it to be used in connected device or connected components. Why that's really relevant is that to actually get to that level, you actually have to be certified in chemical resistance, thermal resistance, mechanical properties, and electrical properties as well. And so that opens up a suite of applications throughout the vehicle that our customers are taking advantage of. So you'll see structural components like basically things that will bring body panels together. You'll see we've converted brake line clips from metal to plastic. We've done interior plug caps, and there's been HVAC components and fluidic routing components as well. And then there's your more traditional kind of badging and these other applications, but in brackets, for instance. But the next frontier for us and what we're currently working with a number of tier suppliers on is electronics. So where can you take those? Take an EV company, for instance, right? They have to develop an electrical connector that costs $100,000 to $150,000 to develop the molding tool in 10 to 20 weeks minimum to develop that mold. If you can 3D print that component in 2 weeks for no tooling cost, how much benefit does that bring to your customer, who in a lot of cases is a new EV company that doesn't have time or budget for this sort of tooling commitment? So those are the kind of applications that we see predominantly throughout the vehicle. And personally, I think that you take those elastomeric concepts that we're doing, there's going to be amazing applications in the future around automotive seating that I can't wait for.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, a couple of case studies come to mind. I think on that low volume production slide, there was a part from Ford. So if you think about kind of the aftermarket replacement parts, so things that are kind of like low volume, but the manufacturer still wants to be providing a replacement part for maintenance, that can be a really good fit for some of those low volume production needs. And so that's a good example. And then I know there's another case study, it was like Lamborghini, where we have a 3D printed fuel cap. And on our website, there is actually a page that breaks down different industries. And so there's a page dedicated to the automotive industry with other relevant case studies and information on materials that are typically used by our automotive customers. So I'd encourage you to check out that page on our website as well.
Definitely.
Excellent. Sounds like a plan. We do have we have another question actually. The question is, are there any small business incubator programs available for startups to reduce the cost barriers to entry? So sounds like, are you guys working with startup companies and working with businesses to assist them?
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. Firstly, great question. And I think startups in particular can take a ton of advantage of 3D printing due to the speed of iteration and the reduction of startup manufacturing costs. So we would definitely encourage you to look at 3D printing for starting up new products and whatnot. But when it comes to carbon, we do have a subscription model which really lowers the barrier to entry for getting a premium industrial printer like ourselves. So there's that option. In addition to that, if you're looking to source parts individually and build this sort of prototype, you can do it through a contract manufacturer that uses carbon technology. We call them carbon partners, and they form the carbon production network where you can send off files and look to receive quoted costs. And they can actually help you scale from one part to as many as you would like to go. But then the third option, which is pretty relevant to this discussion, is that through the university program, a lot of these national initiatives that I'm involved in really do involve trying to create jobs throughout the United States. And an excellent form to do that is through a university-led small business incubator. And so there's plenty of opportunity for that, and we're starting to engage with a lot of universities to have these sort of low-cost prototyping services that can help you build towards your production capabilities.
That sounds great. When you mentioned that, I was thinking about our incubator on campus, the Advanced Technology Development Center.
Exactly.
So I can certainly help facilitate any connections there.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it seems just from listening to your presentation, I mean the competitive advantage for your company seems to be the speed, which you can do the printing, as well as being able to do the mass production, right? I mean, the example of the Adidas shoe was just amazing to me. And I'm curious about how is that progressed as far as the production and the sales from the Adidas shoe?
So we can't talk too much about it publicly, but it's other than to say it's a really strong partnership, and the volumes are scaled significantly. And just the overall satisfaction with the product between us both is pretty strong, and the market's responding pretty well to it. So overall, it's a really fascinating project. Just what I like to say about the Adidas project personally is when we first started working with Adidas, we were kind of we were learning as we were going, and Adidas was just an amazing partner from the beginning. We actually created the L1 printer for Adidas and synthesized a ton of different material formulations to land on EPU 41. And then to go from, creating the printer to scaled manufacturing took a lot of effort and collaboration. And it was just, it's been awesome to see us go through those trials and hurdles and emerge as like a true manufacturing solution in 3D printing. And that experience and that grit that we learn from these sorts of projects really actually enables us as a company to tackle production, which in 3D printing, which in a lot of ways hasn't really been done yet. So it's been exciting and a fun journey, and Adidas has been an awesome partner.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, the video showed that Futurecraft midsole, but since then there's been the 40 forward design, which is a really cool lattice structure that's like engineered to transition that energy that normally would go into like a braking force into forward motion. And so there's definitely still a lot of innovation going on in the development of new products with Adidas. There's just like new product launches that you can just check out on their website.
Very cool.
But it's really exciting.
Yeah, really interesting development is EPU 44, which is a 39% bio-derived polymer. And so Adidas' stance has always been towards pushing towards sustainability. And so we plan to be a part of that and are continuing to look for more sustainable solutions throughout Carbon, and in particular for this project as well.
Oh, that sounds great. That's a really great success story, and I wish you guys continued success. And I'd like to keep in touch to just learn more about what Carbon is doing in the future and how you guys how you guys are progressing over time. So,
Perfect. Yeah, we'd love to stay connected to Georgia Tech. You guys are the best. So
thank you for saying that. All right. I don't see any more questions coming in. So again, I just want to thank you, Connor and Allison, for your time and for a great presentation and answering our questions, and also providing opportunities for the students. So thank you very much. And again, for the audience, thank you for joining us, and come back next week for our presentation on cell therapy products. And so thank you all, and just have a great Monday.
bye, everybody. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.